Well, that's right. I'm now joined by House Majority Leader John Bell and House Minority Leader Darren Jackson. I want to thank you both so much for joining us. I'm going to start with you, Representative Jackson. What was your overall impression of what the governor had to say?
It was a very good bipartisan speech. Governor hit a lot of the high points that he campaigned for in 2016, that the Democrats campaigned for in 2018, including Medicaid expansion. Talked about our school funding needs, which I thought got a lot of support on both sides of the aisle. So I thought overall it was a very good speech.
He also talked about hurricane relief funding. This has obviously been an issue that's been very important to you.
One of the things I'm glad the governor mentioned is the work that the General Assembly has done together in a bipartisan fashion to really get to the root of helping people in eastern North Carolina with the hurricane. But we still have people still hurting from Hurricane Matthew. North Carolina is still labeled a slow spender. There's a lot of work to do, and there needs to be a focus on Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Florence, plus the other tropical storms and wildfires we had in the western part of the state.
We heard the governor talk about a lot of programs, from Medicaid to education to infrastructure, broadband, those kinds of things. All of this costs money. Obviously, the Democrats will have a little bit more say in the budget writing process this time around because we don't have the supermajority. How do you see this all working into a budget?
Well, certainly, I hope that Democrats will have more input on the budget. I would disagree with the premise of your question about everything costing more money, because the plan that's being put forth by the governor for Medicaid expansion is paid for by the hospitals and the providers, the 10% state share. The other 90% is brought forth by the federal government. It's taxpayer dollars that we're already paying. It'll be returned to North Carolina. And, you're talking about creating 30,000 to 40,000 new jobs. You're talking about helping insure 500,000 people, propping up some rural hospitals and healthcare providers. So I think you'll see an economic benefit to that at no cost. You also heard the governor talk about, you've heard the Speaker of the House talk about doing a bond. That's a way that would not impact the bottom line of this year's budget, but could create, 1.9, 2.9, whatever it is, $1 billion in new spending across every county and every school district across the state. So I think there's a lot that we can do that will not impact the bottom line of this year's budget, but will bring real needed relief to citizens of North Carolina.
The governor talked about teacher pay raises, more education spending. He pointed out that North Carolina is still 37th when it comes to teacher pay, obviously much better than it had been a few years ago. Can the state continue to make improvements? It's expensive when you do teacher pay raises.
Well, I think the governor identified the work that we've done over the last 6 years. Teacher pay raises are continuing to increasing. We've looked at addressing the principal, assistant principal pay, administrative pay. We're right now around 57% of our state budget is education alone. That's a huge chunk of dollars that go into our education system. You see those numbers continue to move up. We're on the cusp of being in the Southeast, one of the highest paid teacher salaries in the Southeast, and so we're continue moving forward. We made that commitment. We still need to make the commitment and finish the commitment we made to our veteran teachers and do programs there to help them along the lines. We've come a long way in 6 years.
Do you think that the governor struck the right tone with this State of the State address?
I think the governor did a good job on his delivery of the State of the State. Now, you get into the substance of it, we would disagree on a lot, but there are some bipartisan issues. When you look at school construction bonds, on whether we do pay-as-you-go, whether we do a bond, those are issues that you're going to see bipartisan support on. Disaster recovery, hurricane relief, bipartisan. Of course, you're going to see bipartisan support of our agriculture communities and the impact it has had there. Our governor touted his support for agriculture, yet vetoed every agriculture bill that's come through the House of Representatives with our farm bills. So you've got some bipartisan issues there that we can work on, but also there's still grave concerns to some of the issues he mentioned tonight.
I think the tone was perfect, and it did focus on a lot of bipartisan issues. What I think you saw, though, if you were looking out in the crowd, and I don't know what your cameras necessarily showed, but what you saw is certain bills or certain proposals, a lot of House members stood up, Republicans and Democrats, but not so many senators when we talked about the school bond and things of that nature. So I think you're going to see more of a move from what's been the last 8 years to Democrat versus Republican to now seeing some bipartisan issues where the House is kind of on the same wavelengths on the Democrats and Republicans. Whether you call it Medicaid expansion or Carolina Cares or something to help with the underinsured, the uninsured factor in this country or in this state, and school funding. I think we're going to see a lot of bipartisan issues move out to the House, and the question will be, can we get the Senate to come along?
Okay, certainly we'll all be watching for that. I want to thank you so much for joining us.